The 120 members of Israel's 25th Knesset will be sworn in today, ushering in Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing religious majority bloc and ending 4 years of political instability. The ruling bloc of this new parliament will comprise of Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party, two ultra-Orthodox parties, and the far-right religious Zionism alliance, leaving out the left-wing Meretz and Arab parties that didn't pass the electoral threshold. Israel's 37th government will not be sworn in alongside its lawmakers today as the former premier races to meet a December 11 deadline to negotiate ministerial portfolios with his coalition partners, with the defense and finance ministerial position hotly debated. And let's cross over to the Knesset, Israel's parliament in Jerusalem, where our correspondent Ariel Levin-Waldman is standing by. Ariel, walk us through the swearing-in ceremony today. What can we expect?
So it's still got the new government smell. So new, they haven't even quite started arriving just yet. But until about 3 o'clock today, this passage you see right here behind me is where all of the new members of Israel's parliament are going to be entering the building for their swearing in. Now, it's a pretty basic but still formal occasion. They come in, they get their lapel pin, they get an official portrait taken, but that's when everything starts to get interesting. The president's supposed to come by and introduce the new parliament and the next parliament's the next president of parliament itself. And after that, you have at 4 o'clock the launching of the first session of that parliament. Basic affair, though. All they're really doing today is a swearing-in ceremony where they take what's effectively an oath of loyalty to the country, and after that they have their formal pictures taken. Very basic set of affairs, but it belies a very big question that's going on right now. How do you have a new government if you haven't actually finished the negotiations for the coalition just yet, and who's going to have what position? Because while they're all being sworn in for the next government, the actual breakdown of the cabinet and who's going to have what roles hasn't been determined, and many of the parties will often make that their make or break issues. Is it possible at that point to even undermine the ability to form a coalition if they can't agree on who's going to have the defense minister slot, who's going to be the minister of interior security, who's going to get portfolios for education and religion, and who's going to be the minister of finance? All of these are questions that are currently plaguing negotiations right now about who's going to get what. The only thing you can really determine with any certainty right now is that the four major parties that are going to be making up the coalition understand that the only thing that matters here is power, and if they can't come to some sort of agreement on that, they get nothing at all. So hopefully by the end of the week, they'll have resolved that issue and there will be an answer on who's going to have what roles so that the government can start working.
Ariel, you mentioned those hot negotiations. What's the latest we're hearing in terms of reports?
Well, the big one right now is everyone's hyper-focused on who's going to be the next Minister of Defense. The big one is Bezalel Smotrich of Religious Zionism Party is demanding that portfolio. The problem is, and he's gotten pushback from generals, from former members, and from other members of the Likud Party as well, that he doesn't really have any military experience. What does he have to make him a Minister of Defense when you have actual generals and former Mossadniks on staff in the Likud Party that many people have tapped for a better part in that position? So what's happening with that? That's the big news that everyone's worrying. The issue is religious Zionism has not let up any of their demands for that role. That's not the only one, of course. I mentioned before that education and religion are also being demanded by religious Zionism, which is going to come to a head because the first thing the party wants to do is overhaul the entire law on who counts as a Jew with regards to conversions and get rid of reform conversions and make it so that it's only Orthodox rabbinate conversions that would allow it. So those are the big bickering points right now in who's getting what portfolios. You also have the issue of finance minister. We have Aryeh Deri from Shas who is demanding that. Many people are saying that is absolutely ludicrous because Aryeh Deri was indicted for tax fraud in the past. Why would you put someone like that at the top of the finance ministry? All of these discussions are going on, and again, until there's any sort of resolution to that, you can't definitively say there's a government, even though everyone understands there's going to be a resolution because, once again, the only thing that matters is power.
Ariel Levin-Waldman, thank you very much for that update from the Knesset. And joining me in studio is Ambassador Avi Pazner, former Israeli ambassador to France and Italy. Ambassador, always a pleasure to have you here with us.
Good morning.
I want to get your perspective on this new parliament being sworn in today.
Yeah, it's a parliament which is very strongly leaning on the right. This is obvious. There is a clear right majority, right religious majority, unlike the 4 previous parliaments in the last 3.5 years, which gave birth to a lot of instability. Now, this time, whether you like the composition or you don't like the composition, there is a good chance that you will have stability for 4 years to come, and this is very important for Israel. You really cannot manage a country changing every 6 months government or having interim governments. So we will have here a clear majority. Now the problem will be not so much the composition of the Knesset, we know the composition of the Knesset, but the composition of the government. And here you have Netanyahu is having a very tough time with his partner, both with the National Religious Party and with Shas. And it's by no coincidence that he has not succeeded, because he's already negotiating 10 days and he has not succeeded in forming a government because there is a struggle on the key ministerial posts.
Exactly, and that leads me to my next question. Do you think that Netanyahu will concede to Smotrich's demand to be the defense minister?
I hope he will not. I mean, Smotrich has absolutely no qualification to be defense minister. I think he served a few weeks in the army at the age of 28, something like that. He went to yeshiva before. He has no experience whatsoever, no knowledge whatsoever on security matters. And on the other hand, Netanyahu has within the Likud at least 2 or 3 magnificent candidates for that post. I mean, magnificent from the point of view of their experience, of their knowledge, of what they did in the field of security. Look, Sarah, security is too big an issue to play around with.
Absolutely.
You have to put there somebody who understands security, who understands defense, who is able also to communicate with the Americans, because there is one more element which I didn't tell you, that from Washington there are some signals that they would not cooperate if the Minister of Defense comes from the National Zionist Party. This would put Israel in a very, very dangerous spot.
Absolutely, with probably some various or serious ramifications when it comes to Israeli and U.S. ties. I want to speak to you about the Knesset's opposition now.
Yeah.
And what do you expect out of this one? And do you think it's going to be a more hostile one than the previous one, or will we see a little bit more concessions between the two?
First of all, it is not homogeneous, first of all. And this weakens the opposition, because you have a struggle between Lapid and Gantz, which is not new. I mean, these two men, I put it mildly, don't like each other, okay? I'm a diplomat, put it mildly, don't like each other. So you will not have a united opposition, which makes it difficult. Then, within the opposition, you have also 2 Arab parties, and there is always some hesitation to cooperate with the Arab parties. Right. So you will have a weakened opposition. You will have Lapid making a lot of noise, but not being able to achieve anything concrete.